Testing 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing, 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 testing. All right. Hey everybody, it's Book of Katherine. Let's talk today about whether or not you should tell a friend if they try to hit on you and or if you think they are cheating on them and or if you catch them cheating. If you know. And I know this has been in movies and things like that, but it is still seems to be like an age-old question. All right. Well, just one I've heard a lot in the last 10 years. As someone who has lived through it, telling another person, and as someone who has, well, you can just take it or leave it, whatever. So, look, they always say, there's Dr. Phil, I'm watching so much Dr. Phil lately, but there's a Dr. Phil episode on lately, and he asked the audience, you know, would you tell a friend if your best friend's husband tried to kiss you or did something, would you tell them? And I couldn't believe it. The entire audience just shot their hands up. I was like, oh God. And then a few said, no, I wouldn't tell. And they're like, I've been through it and I lost the friendship. This goes back to, and he just said, well, right, you're due, and the whole audience bristled at that. But to be fair, the whole audience was pretty young too. But the girl that said that she would tell them was pretty smart. She had a really good reason. She's like, look, if they ever find out down the line, they'll say, why didn't you tell me? And then the other one was, you know, I'd want to know. No, 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 no. Look, the bottom line is this. They know. If you watch the episode, you hear there was red flag after red flag after red flag. Believe you me, they know the red flags. And there was this one amazing Oprah when Dr. Phil was first starting out. It was like the life class. And they had people on about should you tell someone. And the thing is all the women who had, you know, eventually divorced their husbands or whatever because he was cheating on them, they were all like, I knew. Like, I had the red flags there, I knew, and I just didn't want to believe it. And the reason why this lady on the Dr. Phil episode, and I'll include it up here or whatever, and when I can, she did believe her friend when her friend told her. But her friend did not tell her until her best friend turned to her and said, I'm having concerns about this guy. And that is the key. Look, your friend knows. If you see behavior in the husband or you see behavior if he hits on you or whatever, your friend knows. Your friend knows and they're choosing that person anyway. And if you poke that bear, it will only come back on you. You will lose that friend. Have you heard a story yet of someone being like, oh, I'm so glad you told me everything shiny in the world is good? No, that story is not out there. No, they are working overtime to ignore those red flags. They're working overtime, and if you shatter that world, that filter they have on them, if you go and try to break it for them when they're working so hard, because believe you me, if they're doing that, or even if the girlfriend is doing that to the guy, believe you me, this person is working overtime for some need that they have. They are working overtime to protect that little reality of themselves, right? And so they're usually in that drama triangle, playing persecutor, rescuer, victim. And so that person who's cheating on them plays those roles on them. When the red flags come up, they go, you know, oh, you persecuted me, I'm going victim. Like this guy decided to feign a panic attack and need the ambulance called. They are really, really, really good at playing the system. Like, there's really good at, like, you know, I remember in California, there are like these older guys that were raised in the birth of psychology, and they just know how to get a million girls serving their needs, like every single emotional need. They have one girlfriend for sex. They've got one, well, come to think of it, well, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily limited to a generation, but the best players at it are older men. Come to think of it, this guy was an older man, right? So he's in his 60s or whatever, and they are just really good at getting women by playing the victim in some capacity because they've got psychology on their side. And they're like, since I was a child, and then the woman goes into rescuer, because women are very, very good at nurturing. It pulls out the nurturing in them, and the women feel like rescuing them, and that makes them feel important. That makes them feel like they're valuable, and so they go and they rescue them. And then if any friend comes in and says something, they're like, you persecuted my husband. Now I'm going to go persecute her on you. You know what I mean? And they try to protect their husband. They think their husband's the victim, and then they go persecute her on you. It never goes well. And what you think you're going to have is a question where they go, oh, really? Tell me more. That's not what they do. They don't want to know more because they've already been working so hard at beating down all the red flags. But when they come to you and they say, I'm worried about... you know, if they show a hint of like, I'm starting to have concerns, you know, I'm starting to have concerns, and they give enough of a opening that they are actually ready to lift the veil, they're starting to look at the red flags and actually having concerns about those red flags, then maybe you can add the red flag to the conversation. But remember also in this story, it wasn't until the wife said to her best friend, do you know anything? And then she shared. And then you know they're interested in what you have to say. Like they're willing to question their partner. So, you know, your therapist may tell you different. All these things may happen. I mean, usually if you have a healthy... when people say, oh, I'd want to know. Yeah, that's because you're not dating a cheater. You know what I mean? Like, I've never heard a woman who dates a cheater be like, oh, I'd want to know. I've never heard that happen. Usually there's, you know, they're not like, oh, I want to know if my... people who say that are usually really, really healthy people. And they say, oh, I wish someone had told me. But the reality is that they were in that relationship. And it's not until they actually run across it and see it, you know, when they run across it and they see it, the evidence for themselves. But it's very important for them to finally have that eye-opening thing happen. Very important. And they think that they would have liked to have somebody tell them, but were they ready? You know, were they ready? And that's the thing you got to ask yourself. Are they ready? Do they talk about the husband in anything other than glowing terms? Do they say they're like, even my friend, she was having problems with her husband, but she was not ready. I saw the red flags like, oh gosh, that's right. I'll never forget it. Yeah, we went to a dinner and my husband was like, yeah, he was flirting with you. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, he was flirting with you hard. And it just went over my head. He was like, yeah, he was being really inappropriate the whole time. He's doing it right in front of his wife, you know, and who was a good friend of mine. And I didn't say anything then. And then I didn't say anything until I thought maybe they were not doing so great. And man, it's slammed in my, because she did not ask me. She didn't ask me, and I brought it up. And I remember the reason I did it is because someone was like, do you love... I remember someone said the rules for confronting. For confronting, not just talking and sharing ideas like that you do around a dinner table, but confronting someone over something. They said, do you love them more than you love the relationship? And now I think that's just such a load of BS. Like, you want to talk to somebody when they're ready to hear it. I don't know. I just can't believe it. But then again, it was in a culture of confronting where you confront. It was like such a culture of judging. Keep judging each other and confront them. So I know it's easy to think like, oh, I'd want to be told. But usually you're not the one dating, you know, the people who say that are pretty healthy people. And the thing is when somebody's cheating, there's no way it just stays in a compartment. I mean, I know like guys to compartmentalize, but there are always changes that affect, you can't cheat without it changing other things. Like changing other things, like finances change, they become more secretive. You can't compartmentalize that sort of thing. And women are incredibly intuitive. Women are incredibly intuitive. They are incredibly intuitive, and they can sense and pick up red flags and everything. And you can ask others, and they're just, it's very interesting. So that's my thing, because I don't know. I've been wanting to talk about that for a while, and then the Dr. Phil episode happened. I was like, well, I'm healthy enough to film. I know I'm really tired looking and everything like that, but I was like, well, maybe I'll just say it now. But remember, that's my 2 cents. I'm not a psychologist. I am not a psychiatrist, which, by the way, the difference is psychologists do talk therapy. Psychiatrists prescribe meds. That's their job. Remember that. Like, Don't go into a psychiatrist for talk therapy. They're there to prescribe drugs. And I've been seeing that a lot lately. Psychiatrists who, like I went to one for a recommendation, like, God, it was so long ago now. And they got upset because I knew they were for drugs. And so I was like, okay. And at that time is before I was off of everything, right? And I was like, well, I'm worried about this. This is having a reaction. It seems to be having a reaction with that. And they seemed so upset that I wouldn't talk therapy with them. Like, so, and I was like literally just asking about drugs. And they seemed upset that I knew that. And I was like, how much are they getting away with? Like, but you can tell because I remember like there was another one when before we had moved and I was going to them and they said, they were like, I'm just for, we just write scripts. You go to a talk person for this. And I guess people aren't doing that anymore from the confusion that I'm hearing out there from feedback. And I'm just kind of like, if they're like, why does the doctor keep prescribing? Why do they just keep... And I'm like, well, you're kind of going to the person that prescribes. That's their job. You're usually supposed to see both a psychologist and a psychiatrist. And you do the talking out with the psychologist. And then if you need meds or something, you go to a psychiatrist and you tell them how you're doing with your other person and how it's going and things like that. And whether it's working. And then they kind of adjust your meds on that. So I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I'm off that thing and got the emotion regulation down. So... but it took forever, you know what I mean? Like to learn, to go back to the root of everything. And I know that's not easy to find. So, but anyway, I'm way off track. If you're interested in my opinion, that's my opinion from my life experience, from hearing all different sides and hearing everything and just my life experience. That is my opinion. Be aware that is very... Everyone says, oh, if you love them or your relationship, and you're like, well, yeah, I love them a lot. I love them so much. But a lot of times you'll drive them closer because they get caught into that drama triangle and they just feel like that partner is being persecuted. And so it increases their rescuer role and they go and rescue them more. And it just, until they're ready, until they're ready, that's how... women sometimes, like, the cheater chooses to leave, and then they end up in another relationship where, they're cheating again, or they finally get hurt enough and they leave, and then they end up in another relationship that's cheating again, and I've just seen it over and over and over again. And so, yeah, it doesn't matter what age or culture I've seen it in. That's kind of a general thing through all of it, so, but I don't know. If you've had other experiences and a different, just take it for my 2 cents. All right. I love you guys so much. That's just my 2 cents. Something to consider. We always think we would ought to know, but that's because we're really alert and really conscientious and really paying attention. And sometimes people can hate you for that. They can really hate you for that. They don't, you are literally... Because remember, I guess this is the thing you have to remember. If you're saying that to them... Never forget that when you say it to them, you're just thinking, I'm being honest and I'm getting it off my chest. You're not really thinking about what you're asking the other person to do, I guess. Understand that when you go to them and you say your person's cheating, you're telling them essentially, get a divorce and go through a divorce process, spend $250,000, lose half of the times with your kids. Do you know what you're asking them to enter into? I mean, do you get that? You're shattering their world. And people are usually thinking about themselves when they go in there. They're like, I want to have a clean conscience. I want to. But they're not thinking about, like, is that person ready? Are they in any kind of a position to break everything that they have and split it up? And, like, are they that, on the edge? And you and I both know that when a person actually asks you, that means they are on the edge. They are thinking about separating. They are considering it. And you kind of want to, so that you're not going in there with a sledgehammer and saying, by the way, you need a divorce. And means every time you see them again, they're going to just see you and think they want me to get a divorce and not see my kids half the time or this or that or whatever. And, usually a person wants to separate out of their own when they're ready to do it. And it's hard to watch them go through it, but just be aware that they have red flags. Have you ever heard a woman or a man say that there weren't red flags? And I just didn't see him. I knew they were there, but I ignored it because he was such a sweet talker, or she was just so good and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so remember that, like, everyone sees red flags. If they are in the middle of choosing to ignore them, you know, and then you come in and say, well, I see them loud and clear. I see all the red flags. And they're kind of like, but I've been really trying to ignore them for my own needs, for whatever they're getting out of it, whether because it puts them in that lovely drama triangle and they keep getting a rescue. I know I've seen some just know, and they're just like, I choose my kids instead. Not saying you should do that, but like some are, you know, some people like that. Like they know and they're just like, just don't rock the boat, you know, and, you know, even separating, that's rough. You're asking them to separate and never trust that person again. And usually I think I've said it all. It's time for me to go. All right, so there are some videos, and I'm going to go try and get some sleep. I love you guys so much, and I'm glad that I finally had an opportunity to share this one with you, because I've had a lot to say lately. So I love you, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. And I love reading everything you've been sending in. You guys have been so amazing. Thank you so, so much. I can't thank you enough. Keep me going every day. Love you. Bye.